To all who come to this happy podcast, welcome. This is This Happy Place, a Disney podcast. And this is the series where I will be talking about every film to come from the Walt Disney Animation Studio. We are on film number 10, which means it's time to talk about Melody Time. Melody Time is another one of those Disney movies that you might have forgotten or neglected, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's another one you haven't heard before. There isn't a lot of typical popularity of this film. There's nothing about it that has made its way into the Disney pop culture zeitgeist. But I can tell you this. I can't wait to be done talking about these packaged films. It's been a little bit of a rough go about. I'm just excited to go into some of the Disney story classics. The first one after these packaged films is going to be Cinderella. But after Melody Time, we still have Ichabod and Mr. Toad, so we're not quite there yet, but we are getting close. There isn't really much history to Melody Time. It is a very similar situation as to Make Mine Music. So if you want to know a little bit more about the background information, which there isn't a lot, go ahead and check out the Make Mine Music episode. When I mean there isn't a lot of history, even when you go to the special features for Melody Time on a DVD, there is nothing. There's no behind the scenes. It's just more shorts. But the first short in Melody Time is titled Once Upon a Winter Time. And the thing that is kind of significant about Once Upon a Winter Time is that it was really one of the first big projects that Disney legend Mary Blair was a part of. Mary Blair did a bunch of concept art for a bunch of Disney movies, Sleeping Beauty and Alice in Wonderland being some of the main ones, but she was also a major player when it came to the development of the ride It's a Small World. Not the songs, just the overall look and aesthetic of it. But Once Upon a Winter Time is a short about a couple who is on a sleigh ride on their way to a frozen river to ice skate. But on their way to the river, there are some rabbits that hitched a ride on the sleigh. And these rabbits are pretty much going to be mirroring every action that the human couple does. It's cute, but in the grand scheme of the short, I don't feel like they served any real purpose, except saving the life at the end, which I will get into that in just a little bit. Ice skating is a good date. An unspoken rule of ice skating and dating in general is to not make fun of your date if they fall or if they mess up in any way. The man in this short has apparently never been taught that courtesy, as he laughs over and over again every time his date falls. And the guy rabbit, like I said, mirrors every action that the guy does, is doing the same thing to the female rabbit. The girl storms off, and when she storms off, she misses a very important sign. The sign is a marker that says, "Beware thin ice," past that point. The male bunny noticed this sign and tried to show the girl bunny and the woman, but they ignored him. He did something not very smart, and he picked up the sign and he shoved it into the ice. And since it's thin ice, the ice started to break up a little bit. Now, I know sometimes you need to suspend your disbelief when watching movies, but for whatever reason, I found it very hard to do that here. The girl, who, side note, is animated without a nose, but the man is. Anyway, the girl ends up stranded on a piece of ice while the river turns into the most intense rapid you have ever seen that ends in a waterfall. They most likely added this section because the short desperately needed something exciting or something to make it worth watching. Eventually, they do get saved, but it's just that weird random part of the river turning into a strong white water rapid that would kind of threw me off a little bit. The next short is called Bumblebees, and I'm sure you've all heard the famous piece of music, The Flight of the Bumblebee. This is a jazzed up version of that, but it's kind of ironic because there is a voice narrator at the beginning of the short that describes it as a bee trying to escape an instrumental nightmare, and that couldn't be a more accurate description of this. Jazz music I appreciate it. Flight of the Bumblebee is a fun piece of music. When you make a jazz version of Flight of the Bumblebee, it's not very fun to listen to, and it indeed sounds like an instrumental nightmare. The one upside to this specific short is that the flowers are illustrated to have like elements of instruments, which I thought was cool. The flower petals are like piano keys, but by the end of this short, I was getting a good-sized headache. The next short is by far my favorite short of the movie, and I'll need to think about a little bit more and maybe make a comprehensive list one day, but it very well may be my favorite short out of all these packaged films. It is a short that's about Johnny Appleseed. We have all heard this American folk tale, and this is Disney's spin on it. In fact, we do know that for like the previous packaged films like Saludos Amigos and The Three Caballeros, they were very Latin American inspired. The original plan for Melody Time was to have every short be inspired by a classic American folk tale. That obviously didn't happen, but Johnny Appleseed did stick. We have heard of this American folktale, and this is just Disney's spin on it. For starters, every song in this short was absolutely fantastic. The first song is all about Johnny giving thanks to the Lord for giving him everything he needs. The sun, the rain, and Appleseed. Johnny is such a good guy, and this short is just about him doing good things. It's refreshing, I ain't gonna lie, to watch a movie where good things happen to good people and it just focuses on good people doing good things. Johnny has the desire to go with the pioneers on a journey, but he feels pressure to stay at his apple grove. It's at this moment where an angel, I don't know if he is actually an angel, but a person just appears who is dressed up in your typical American frontier garb with like the Davy Crockett raccoon hat. He invites Johnny to spread the joy of apples across the country. So Johnny takes it upon himself to share the glory of apples. There is this montage where you see everything you can make with apples, and there is a delightful song that goes with it. It's a very clever song, it's catchy, it's still stuck in my head, and it's just really fun to see Johnny make friends with all the little forest critters and just be happy. The short ends with Johnny Appleseed growing old, completing his mission, and that same angel we saw from the first movie invites him to start spreading the joy of apples in heaven. The world could use a viewing of this short right about now, and I recommend that if you are in a bad mood, this short will surely cheer you up. The next one is called Little Toot Toot. This short is sung by the popular group The Andrews Sisters. Little Toot is a tugboat who has big aspirations of eventually one day tugging big freighter boats like his dad. You see Little Toot Toot helping his dad with these big boats the same way you might see a little boy helping his dad mow the lawn by simply putting his hands on the mower without actually pushing the mower. However, there's an incident that happens as Little Toot tries to help his dad, but it doesn't end very well. The big boat the dad was towing ends up crashing into buildings on the shore, and Little Toot doesn't just get punished, he gets full-on exiled. No joke, he gets put in the boat equivalent of handcuffs, and he gets escorted out to the deep sea. The dad did nothing to try and stop this, and while this moment is happening, the Andrews Sisters are singing the lyrics, what a shame, you have disgraced your father's name. So now instead of tugging shipping boats, the dad is now tugging trash barges. I hated this whole part. Dad Tugboat may win the award for the worst Disney dad. Seriously, not even trying to get your son back? Like, come on. But in a situation kind of akin to the classic Rudolph story, while Little Toot is out at sea, he finds a boat that is stuck, and it's only Little Toot who can save the day. This boat's a big boat, and Little Toot is able to bring him back to where the other boats are, and is accepted back into the boat society, I guess. I actually really like the singing in this. I love the World War II 1940s style of music like this. Listening to it, I was like, I know this group sounds familiar. And it's because they're also the ones who sing that popular Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy song. But this short, it's just like one long song as opposed to several that are combined together. It's the song that's just telling the story, and it's more like melodic. That I don't know which word I'm trying to say, but it's like talking in rhythm rather than like an actual song, if that makes sense. The next simple short is called Trees, and watching the short is probably one of the biggest wastes of time I've had watching a Disney movie. It's adapted from a poem by the same name, and I need to give you a little backstory about myself that perfectly sums up how I feel about trees. The short, not actual trees. In high school, I took an AP literature class, and a portion of that class was dedicated to poetry. Analyzing and what I think at sometimes over-analyzing made me not like poetry at all, and right now I couldn't care less for it. It's not for me, but I'm glad if you like poetry. I believe it was J.R.R. Tolkien who said something along the lines of, I don't want people to overanalyze my work, I just want people to take it at face value. And I feel like sometimes we overanalyze poetry to a point where we lose the meaning the author originally intended. All that's just to say that since I don't like poetry, I don't like this short. But however, it actually does have one of the most beautiful 2 to 4 second brief moments of animation. It's just a simple drop of dew on a tree branch, but how they animated it with like the reflections of reflecting its background, how the lighting affects this piece of water, it's absolutely beautiful. The penultimate short is called Blame It on the Samba. It's Donald and Jose. Jose, previously seen in Saludos Amigos and the Three Caballeros. There's also a new bird we haven't seen before that is introduced. It isn't really about anything. It's just samba music with colorful imagery. It's not music I particularly enjoy, so I would pass on this short. There really isn't much to say for it, but if you do want to watch a short that is Latin American inspired, go watch anything from Saludos Amigos and the Three Caballeros. The last short is probably the second best short in the movie, and the only other one I would say I enjoyed. Pecos Bill, some of you may recognize that as the name of a restaurant in Magic Kingdom, but it's also an American folk tale that's similar to Paul Bunyan. Of all the shorts, this is probably the short that is most aligned with the original vision of this movie of making all of these shorts deal with America. For those of you who don't know the general gist of the story of Pecos Bill, Pecos Bill is a character who was lost from a covered wagon that was crossing the plains and was raised by coyotes, very similar to Mowgli in the Jungle Book being raised by wolves. Pecos starts to develop characteristics that match the wildlife around him. He is really meant to embody the feeling of the American West and the expansion of the country. He is a superhero with super strength, agility, making it possible to perform tasks that are impossible. But perhaps what he is best known for is creating some of the biggest geographical features in the West, like digging up and creating the Rio Grande River. In classical folklore, you will see the tale of Pecos Bill combined with the tale of others like Paul Bunyan or John Henry, and I was so bad that they made a Paul Bunyan short and really tried to develop this movie with shorts about America or featuring American folklore. It was fun watching the tale of Pecos Bill and all the crazy things he did. I love anything dealing with the American Wild West. It did hurt from having a narrator rather than the characters talking, but I can understand why. It's narrated by the famed Roy Rogers, and when you get Roy Rogers, you use him for all you can. Out of ranking all the Disney movies, I would probably put Melody Time at number 7, below the Three Caballeros and Saludos Amigos, but still ahead of Fantasia. Like I said, if this short was just the Johnny Appleseed short, this would be towards the top. But right now, this is at number 8. And I do got to admit something or amend something from my last episode. I have thought about it a bit more, and I think I am ready to put Fun and Fancy Free above Pinocchio. So right now, that my top 3 Disney movies, Dumbo, Snow White, Fun and Fancy Free, Pinocchio, Saludos Amigos, The Three Caballeros, Melody Time, Fantasia, Bambi at number 9, and Make Mine Music at number 10. We only have one more film in the packaged film era, and that is one I have seen before, so I'm excited to watch it again. The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. Well, thanks again for listening to this episode of This Happy Place, a Disney podcast. You can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Threads at This Happy Place Podcast. And if you want to keep up with my rankings, you can follow my Letterboxd page, which is essentially like Goodreads for movies at This Happy Place. Thanks again for listening, and remember, there is a great big beautiful tomorrow shining at the end of every day.